It's time for
DodgerHeads.
Hi, everyone. Sorry, that was abrupt. I apologize for what happened there. Welcome back to the DodgerBlue.com YouTube channel and podcast. My name is Matthew. Joining me I'm filling in for Scott, and in his usual Thursday night slot is Bruce. Bruce, we were texting before this game, before the game ended, kind of going over the plan, and it was looking like things were trending in a positive direction for the Dodgers. And then it all came to a grinding halt.
Yeah, for a while there, it looked like it was going to be a flying through ball game and a flying through win for the Dodgers, and that went to the wayside pretty fast there in the last couple innings. So we go from a real positive feeling show to the opposite of that.
Yeah, and we're going to go through kind of the positives and negatives. I think on top of the loss, there's obviously some concern with Max Muncy coming out of the game early tonight. If you saw it, there's a scary collision there at first base. We also have some confirmation that, your eyes weren't deceiving you. Shohei Ohtani was bothered, or at least picking at a blister during his start last night. Let's see, what else do I have here in my notes as well? And then we're going to do prospects. We haven't done it in a while with Bruce, and there's some notable updates that have been going on with some of the big name minor leaguers that I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with. And Bruce also has some additional info on other prospects that are maybe sort of flying under the radar a bit. So we'll be sure to get to that. And then, of course, we'll leave time for questions at the end. I want to thank everybody who is joining us on YouTube. I know we're also simulcasting on Twitch, but I would imagine that the majority of you watching this live are with us on YouTube. As a reminder, we have moved our live shows to stream exclusively on YouTube. It's frankly the best way for us financially to sort of monetize everything and kind of keep, our staff supported and growing, hopefully, type thing. And it brings all of the conversation kind of together, cleans up the comments a little bit. And yeah, I see some frustration in here tonight. We're going to get to them. As a reminder, please do us a favor, subscribe to the Dodger Blue 1958 YouTube channel, ring the notification bell, give us a thumbs up on this video. And if you're listening after the fact via podcast, we appreciate you as well. You can rate, review, subscribe. And before we get into our topics, Bruce, we already have some super chats that are coming in. And as we like to do, those get some priority here. So we appreciate these. The first one is from Joseph Gutierrez. It says, this is now the second game in the last week. The bullpen is to blame for a loss. This one and the loss to the Phillies. And they almost blew another one earlier this series. Also, Mookie is a problem. We're going to get to all that. I'm sure Mookie will come up. He was leading off tonight with Shohei Ohtani getting some rest, and he's been a lightning rod. Daniel Barry Sports Highlights says, quite simply, DFA Tanner Scott. Excuse me. I get some of the frustration. Obviously, Tanner Scott, especially tonight, gave up the walk-off home run. He was to blame, if you will, partly. He was on the mound when recently another loss. Frackman 55. Max has a head-on collision with a dumb. I'll keep this family friendly. If you're watching with us, you can read what it says. First baseman and Klein, World Series stud last year, and Scott blows the game in the ninth. Cannot believe what I saw tonight. Should have won. Yeah, I think that sentiment is probably the prevailing theme, right, Bruce? I know I text you saying the Klein leadoff home run to Corbin Carroll was not something I would have expected. I believe it was the first home run Klein has given up this season. And if I saw it correctly, I believe our friend David Vassay of Dodger Talk, AM 570, said it was the first home run Klein has allowed as a member of the Dodgers, which obviously goes back to last season, which is impressive. But kind of initial thoughts before we sort of start picking this one apart.
Yeah, the bullpen has been such a strength this year, and now this is a few games within this last week. There was the Phillies game that the Dodgers lost when Tanner Scott had a tough one, and then this one is the same thing. And then yesterday they just about blew it, and it felt like they were crawling to the finish line. So it, I think, is a little bit of a comeback to earth moment happening right now for the bullpen. Some of these guys that have been absolutely lights out or seeing a little blip in the radar. it happens during the full 162. It's tough when it seems like a couple different guys are all having some of their worst outings of the season all in a row. And that's what you had tonight. I mean, for Will Klein, I think you can live with the leadoff home run. It's not like he was going to go the full season without giving up a homer. It was a solo shot. Dodgers are still ahead by a run. It's allowing the inning to progress from there. And he didn't allow the second run, but it was his base runner that came in when Alex Vesia came in and couldn't slam the door either. So it was three relievers that all had a chance to step up and do a better job tonight, and none of them came through. And this isn't the first game in the last week that it's like that. So it definitely is a change of pace from what we've seen through much of this year.
Yeah, and I don't know if this is Little Sam, maybe Little Sammy perhaps is saying no one should be threatening the player's life and his family. I put this up on the screen and I left it up there, and now we're putting it out that we're bringing attention to it because yes, Tanner Scott's wife, after Tanner, his last game that he gave up the lead, I believe it was against the Phillies. She received, death threats and things of that nature on social media, and none of that stuff is okay. And so I would hope that people who are with us on these shows are not part of that group who were sending those nasty comments to Tanner Scott's wife and family. But yes, I just want to point that out that, as frustrating as you might be, if you want to say that, DFA Tanner Scott, stuff of that nature, okay. But, let's keep it there and not get personal with this stuff. Another super chat from Frackman55. Worried about Max, cannot afford to lose Muncy for the season. Such an awesome player and third baseman. Yeah, we can address it. I mean, we'll probably get into it a little bit later too, but Bob Nightingale tweeted a couple minutes ago that no concussion for Max Muncy, a sore nose, will not play Friday. So looks like maybe best case scenario.
Yeah, disaster avoided if that holds. So that was a nasty collision. I haven't seen anything about Ildemaro Vargas, but hopefully he'll be okay too, because that was one of those ones that hard for really any blame to fall on either guy, but they hit full speed. That was rough.
Yeah, it looked like a football play there, unfortunately.
Yeah. And nobody's in helmets or face masks.
No. All right. Let's get into kind of some of the nitty gritty with this. Dodgers, they were trending towards a win. It was going to be 3 of 4 out in Chase Field. Mookie Betts, as I mentioned, was in the leadoff spot tonight. Shohei Ohtani got the night off for rest. Truthfully not saying it's related, but the Dodgers didn't have a hit until Kyle Tucker's leadoff single in the 5th inning. Unfortunately, Will Smith then hit into a double play. And then that's where, the event collision happened between Max Muncy and Ildemaro Vargas at first base. As Bruce and I just said, it looked like a football play, and Bruce astutely pointed out no helmets or face masks. As soon as both players collided at the bag, they both fell back on their backs, were writhing in pain, checked on by trainers. Each of them came out of the game. It's sort of, I don't want to call it a turning point, but the Dodgers definitely rebounded, I guess. Like you always work when you see something like that and players are concerned, you wonder about kind of the emotional aspect and how you're going to respond, in a sense, for lack of a better word. They did get some help. Ryan Ward hit an RBI double to the gap. I'm not sure. I believe it was Corbin Carroll out there in right field. I don't know if he thought he could cut it out. What was your read on that play?
Yeah, that was just one that it didn't look like Corbin Carroll saw very well. He was just jetting over and undercut it. It was just a bad route for a guy that doesn't take very many of those. He's a very good defender out there.
Yeah. Just interesting all around. So Dodgers get their first run, 1-0, and then another more bad outfield defense for the Diamondbacks resulted in an RBI single for Dalton Rushing. Dodgers have a 2-0 lead at that point. Wrobleski gets through 6 innings. Kyle Hurt, who had struggled earlier this week, bounces back in a sense, gave up a single, stolen base, scoreless 7th inning. As we mentioned, Will Klein gave up the leadoff home run in the 8th. He exited with 2 runners on base, and so that was a problem spot there that Alex Vesia bailed him out of. Then the Dodgers just needed one more inning. No, do I have this wrong? My apologies. I felt like the stuff. Let me try and double check. Anyway, I won't try. The 8th inning, the Diamondback. Let me try.
Yeah, Vesia entered after Will Klein was out. It was still 2-1, and the hit to tie it came off of Vesia.
There we
So
go. Yeah,
that's where I was saying, like, it's 3 different guys that all came in after Hurt tonight that none of them had a perfect outing. And I think, kind of set yourself up for that when the offense only had 2 runs on the board. And like I said, for me, it just circles back to, like, Will Klein giving up the home run. You can live with that and just hope to see another day. But it's for the inning to get worse from there that is where it gets tough. So this bullpen's been so good throughout this year. This is just going to happen sometimes. And I think some of the talk has to go back to the offense and say that really those only 2 runs that they had tonight were a lot in thanks to the Diamondbacks defensive lapses. So this was not a good night offensively, and that deserves to get talked about too.
Yeah, and that's what Ryan, I believe, is pretty sure is Pinsanity is saying. You're not going to win many games with only 2 runs scored. Yeah, I don't know why I said Vesia bailed out Will Klein. I don't even have that in my notes. Frankly, I think I just envisioned, and I thought that I expected that to be the case because Vesia has been so good this season. Yeah. Unfortunately, not this time around. And then, as we mentioned, Tanner Scott walk-off home run in the 9th inning. And yeah, the bullpen is certainly going to get a lot of the attention and blame, if you will. You mentioned it. Pinsanity did as well. The 2 runs for the offense, that can't happen. You're probably not going to win, maybe, a lot of games in that way. And I think, against the Diamondbacks specifically, they are either at the top or near the top in comeback wins this season among all teams. I forget what number they're at now at this point. So this is something that they have proven, adept to doing at various points throughout the year. And so it's not necessarily much of a surprise there. With the offense, what did you see kind of was there keys with certain? I mean, look, like a lot of guys have been sort of up and down, right? Obviously, Mookie Betts is certainly going to draw a lot of attention for his struggles, but there's something in particular with the at-bats tonight that stuck out to you?
There was a lot of really early aggression that wasn't necessarily working. I know I had the radio broadcast on for a lot of the game, and Rick Monday just continually was talking about, like, geez, this is like it's the final game of spring training. They're just going up and swinging at the first pitch every single time, and it wasn't necessarily working. The Dodgers didn't hit too many balls that hard tonight, so I don't know. I didn't really notice anything specific to say that it was a departure from their regular offensive approach, but it was very aggressive and it wasn't really translating. Ryan Nelson was into the 6th inning with still only in the 60s in his pitch count, and they were letting him get deep and making quick outs a lot tonight.
Yeah. And, what's interesting is, this wasn't, 4-game series is a little abnormal, right? You're used to typically 3 games, but this wasn't as if the Dodgers were at the end of a really long road trip, which is, what we've seen already in some of these cases, like a 10-game road trip or 10-day road trip, whatever the case may be. They were home 4 games in Arizona, and they're coming right back only to play 3 against the Angels and then back out on a legitimate road trip right after that. So yeah, that sort of aggressiveness, maybe lack of patience, is certainly atypical, I think, for the Dodgers collectively. And like I said, with this type of series, if it was, we've seen it where if they go to Washington, D.C., and then they play the Mets, and then maybe they're playing Houston at the end, like that last game, if it's a getaway day in Houston, you might see, some aggressiveness. And not that the Dodgers give games or at-bats away, but human nature, like, stuff does happen. So it was surprising to see it tonight.
I think especially when you have that ultra aggressive approach like they clearly had tonight. First, I don't think that has anything to do with the getaway day thing or anything. That's the approach the Dodgers clearly carried into this game, thinking it was the best way to get to Ryan Nelson. I think the biggest thing when you are sending guys up there and swinging early in counts and getting balls in play early as much as they did tonight, you want to see more hard hit balls. And you should only be swinging early in counts if it's drivable pitches. And that was where the equation didn't quite add up tonight. They only had 4 balls hit at least 100 miles an hour. And when you're swinging that early, that often, you just need better results than that.
Yeah, definitely. We have another super chat. This one is from Laura. She's asking, why was Mookie moved to the leadoff spot if he's not hitting? Did this surprise you, this decision?
No. The Dodgers clearly are happy with operating with Mookie Betts as one of their main offensive players, whether that is how the previous box scores have looked or not. They think that is who he is looking at the next day. And that's how the Dodgers are making their lineups, not based on what's been happening. They are trying to project what's going to happen, and they still think that Mookie Betts is one of the guys that's going to contribute the most. Obviously, he hasn't been. He did have one hard hit ball tonight, fly out to dead center in Chase Field that probably could have been a hit in some other ballparks. So that was a little bit better of a swing, but obviously he isn't firing on all cylinders right now. But the Dodgers also, Dave Roberts has showed this plenty of times before, and nobody should be expecting them to move Mookie Betts down to the like 6th spot or 8th spot in the order or something and think that's going to fix anything. That is clearly not the way that they've gotten him out of slumps before. And I'm still not going to sit here and say that the Dodgers are worse with Mookie Betts batting leadoff, because I think that is a statement that doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah, and looking at the lineup that they had out there, my gut reaction, my initial response was, like Mookie's in the leadoff, like a little surprising. But then when you look at it, there weren't very many clear-cut candidates to quote unquote fill in for Ohtani, if you will. I mean, maybe they could have done Will Smith again, but he's also been struggling recently. I know he did have the double tonight in the 9th inning. Kyle Tucker, I think he was the leadoff hitter one night as well when Ohtani
did at some point, when Ohtani was off. But nobody has really. They had Dalton Rushing a couple times earlier in the year move up there, and nobody. I mean, whenever Ohtani's not in the lineup's going to look a lot worse, and somebody has to move up there. So Mookie Betts is supposed to be one of the main hitters in this lineup, so it's not a controversial thing to have him be the guy, especially given that he's been a leadoff hitter most of his career.
And the other element to this too is by moving Mookie up, you were for the most part able to keep the rest of the majority of the players kind of in spots that they've become accustomed to recently. And I think that's the prevailing theme as well. On top of, look, Dave Roberts, if you missed, I know I was watching SportsCenter LA before the game, and Dave Roberts did say that he still believes in Mookie Betts and that he knows the results aren't fully showing it, but he thinks some of the at-bats are getting better. BL Boyd is telling me not to act so dumb. Nobody's struggling like Betts. Look, fine, but again, first of all, I'm not trying to act dumb, so my apologies if that's how it's coming across. Like I said, when I first saw the lineup, I did think, oh, that's a little surprising. But then when you look at the rest of the lineup, and Bruce and I were just walking through the options, Kyle Tucker, they're trying to get him going consistently as well. They're not going to move him up one game to the leadoff spot for the sake of doing it. I think they want him to sort of find whatever rhythm he is hitting, in the cleanup spot, I believe he's in these days. Yeah. Andy Pages has been moved up, but he's not a prototypical leadoff hitter. So there weren't many options. And I think, yes, considering that, and like I was just explaining, look, you guys don't necessarily need to agree with the decision, but I think what Bruce and I do try to help do on these shows, and our staff, frankly, on these shows, is explain and give you insight into how the Dodgers arrive at some of their decisions. And looking at this, on top of Dave Roberts believing in Mookie Betts, whether you agree with that or not, fine. The reality is moving Mookie to the leadoff spot kept everybody else pretty much where they have been hitting for the most part this season, and that's an important factor to the Dodgers as well.
And I also think that if you just put yourself in the mind of Dave Roberts, I would be thinking, how can we just change the feel for Mookie Betts a little bit, get him to somewhere that he has been for a lot of his career, feeling very comfortable. Mookie Betts could always hit leadoff and know how to operate in that role because he's done it so many times. So I think that it's not a big deal at all. And Shohei Ohtani will be back in there and back at leadoff with Mookie back at cleanup on Friday. So,
yeah. And let me see. I saw a comment here. Pee Wee saying, oh no, that wasn't it. Where did it go? Sorry, I'm trying to scroll here and find it. Yeah, I'm not seeing it now. Oh man. It must have been deleted. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway. It was, I don't know. Must have been deleted. My apologies. All right. Let's move on to the next topic. And one of the bright spots from tonight was Justin Wrobleski. 6 scoreless innings. He did give up 6 hits, no walks, 4 strikeouts. His ERA is now down to 2.62 this season, which is 6th best in the National League. I think the scoreless innings, we do need to recognize that Wrobleski got some help from Andy Pages in the 6th inning on a 2-out double. The Diamondbacks held Arenado at third base. Wrobleski got out of that inning without allowing a run. He also had some help from Dalton Rushing on back-to-back ABS challenges. And then the next pitch was the third out of that inning. And Fabian Ardaya, I know he shared it during the game, but if you haven't had a chance to read it yet over on The Athletic, he covered how the Dodgers are using the traject machine to help Rushing with some of the ABS challenges and pitch recognition and things of that nature. And Fabian, will be back on Sunday show, so I'm sure we'll get a chance to discuss that with him. The other, sort of aspect with Wrobleski, his fastball velocity was still up, 90. It was up against the Phillies up to 94.9 miles per hour. He set a career high in that start with 9 strikeouts. So again, not as many strikeouts tonight. His fastball velocity against the Diamondbacks, let's see, I have it here, was 95.4 miles an hour. So it was up even more from his last outing. So trending in the right direction in that sense, Bruce. Wrobleski, after the Philly start, said, a lot of it was mechanics. What did you take away from his outing tonight?
Just like what it says on the screen right now, more of the same. This was the Justin Wrobleski start that we've gotten used to this year, and I just love watching him pitch because he just goes right at every single hitter. He's not afraid of anybody, and it leads to a lot of efficiency. This was another one of those starts that he was through 5 with, I think it was 66 pitches, and it's been a lot of that this year. And there's a ton of value. Tonight, there were some hard hit balls that, like you said, I think any other base runner on the Diamondbacks and many of them in baseball would have scored where Nolan Arenado didn't, but you live with that. And I think this was another good start for Justin Wrobleski. It's encouraging to see the velocity still living up, because if Robo is sitting 95.5 like he was tonight, he's going to be a fantastic arm, not only through the rest of this year, but moving into the future with his velocity up that high, being able to lean on the fastball. And that really plays to his aggression in the zone. That extra boost of velocity really makes or breaks his profile from being a good 4 or 5 starter who can fill innings to being a real impact guy. And that's what he's looked like these last few starts. So this was another good one for him.
Yeah. And I think what's interesting about this start too, especially, is it sort of was a little bit of everything for both good and bad for Wrobleski. The velocity, still trending up, which is encouraging considering where it had been to start the season and stuff like that. The other side of it is I mentioned the 4 strikeouts. It's down from his career high of 9 in his last outing, but also it was the slider that had more whiffs tonight for Wrobleski. I believe it finished at 19% compared to 17% on the fastball. The other thing, too, is he did give up 11 hard hit balls. And as a reminder, those are classified as having an exit velocity of 95 miles an hour or higher. If you include a Nolan Arenado flyout, that was at 94.9 mile an hour exit velocity, and there was 12 hard hit balls for Wrobleski. There was also a 94.7 mile an hour out in there as well. So technically, if you want to round up for this sake of doing so, you could be 13 hard hit balls. But anyway, like that's sort of been the story of his season, right? A lot of, as he was putting these starts together throughout May, a lot of the conversation was, well, hey, he's pitching to contact. How sustainable is this? And tonight, like he did, sort of play with fire, if you will, but he got through it with 6 scoreless innings. We mentioned the help from Andy Pages, and if it's anybody other than Nolan Arenado running the bases, maybe that is a run. But if that's the only run he potentially gives up, 6 innings, 1 run is still a very good, literally is a quality start by definition, but also just, a good start by, if you want to just look at the eye test and say, hey, sure, there was some hard hit. How much concern do you have you put into how Wrobleski is sort of going about it?
I don't have a lot of concern with it at all. Obviously, it's not the most sustainable thing ever. It's always going to be more sustainable to be striking guys out all the time and getting whiffs, because you can always trust that. But that doesn't mean that it's not still a path to success. And I think Wrobleski's made that very obvious this year, that his style works. And I think that it's something that I see as a plus, not a negative, because he changes the way that he pitches based on situations. If there's nobody on base, he's going to go right at batters and throw the ball in the zone and try and get ahead 0-2. I liked how in the article from Katie Wu, one of the things that he evaluates himself on is 3 pitches or less. That's something that I've always heard coming up as a baseball player. 3 pitches or less, the efficiency and just the aggression to never be afraid of a batter is something that I haven't heard that in professional baseball, but that's a term that he specifically uses, and I think encapsulates that mindset for him. And once guys are in scoring position, it changes for him. He's not throwing the ball right in the zone and going to be okay with those hard hit balls. But like I said, when it's nobody on, nobody out, he's going to throw the ball in the zone. And if it's hit hard, then he's okay to live with that because it might be right at someone and it might be a quick out to keep his outing moving along. So I think if there's anybody on the staff that you really have to look at with nuance in how they pitched and not just look at those numbers and evaluate based off of that, it's Robo. And I think tonight's one of those starts that was a good one for him, regardless of what those numbers say.
Yeah, that's a great point. And, I was on with Greg Bergman over on ESPN LA, their Blue Review show this morning, and Wrobleski came up and I said, I don't think it's a stretch by any means to say he has basically been an unsung hero for the starting rotation. Is that something? Would you agree with that sentiment?
Oh, for sure. And I think that he's gotten the sung a little bit too. Like, I don't think that he's necessarily under the radar right now, but he's been a hero for this team. And I think last time I was on here on Sunday, I talked about it a little bit, how many of the most impactful guys on this team have been the guys making big league minimum. Andy Pajes has been the guy on the offensive side, and Robo's been the guy on the pitching side. That this team would not be anywhere close to where they are without those two guys. And Robo has been for sure one of the most impactful Dodgers this year.
Yeah, and you mentioned the Katie Wu article over on The Athletic. That was really intriguing to hear how Wrobleski has developed his own spreadsheet and basically formula to punch numbers into and grade himself and stuff like that. He's famously the Rubik's Cube aficionado, right? Am I getting that correct?
I think I'm Jack Dreyer.
That's right, Jack Dreyer. My apologies. Another young left-hander. My apologies. There.
Class of rookies.
But certainly an interesting. And as Laura, we had the comment up. She likes the way Wrobleski carries himself. I think that is a factor too. And I know, Bruce, you're more analytically inclined. I'm not saying this in a negative way. You're more analytically inclined than I am. But I think with Wrobleski, like, we sort of meet in the middle, right? Where, as Laura said, the way he carries himself, and you mentioned the way he goes about it, like, sure, if you look at the stat, if you look at all the hard hit balls, you can say, hey, that's not good. But he's been doing it. And is it going to run out at some point? Perhaps. But like I told Greg this morning when I was on with ESPN LA, and I would encourage you guys to check that out once we're done here. It's sort of the Michael Conforto thing, right? Last season, hey, his metrics are saying it's going to turn around. And it never really did. The numbers for Wrobleski are saying it's going to turn, obviously, in a negative sense, but what's to say, like, they don't necessarily have to, right? Like, the Dodgers are sound defensively behind him, and sure, maybe it is more risky than if you have a strikeout dominant pitcher, but ultimately, if he keeps getting through these starts, keeps giving the Dodgers length, then they're going to take it. And then, come October, they figure things out depending on who's healthy.
Right. And the way that it works with Robo's approach is there are going to be starts that don't look great, but that doesn't mean that every single start is going to be rough. And I think that I'm a big fan of the law of averages in a general sense, and thinking that things are always going to even out. But for Robo, I don't think that like the numbers that are projecting the future and like expected numbers and things like that can't always bake in the stuff that he is specifically trying to achieve. And the way that he changes based on situations, how he's attacking hitters and how aggressive he is, those kind of things don't work in those expected stats that are projecting the future are assuming that every batter is basically on an even playing field. And that's not the way that Wrobleski pitches. So I think that he's outperformed those sort of numbers for long enough now. And he's talked about why, and we understand why, to a point that I think that you can trust that he'll continue to outperform, even if it's not all the time, because simply put, when you're allowing contact as much as he is, there's going to be times that it's just a tough day where more balls fall in or more of them get over the fence, whatever. So it's not always going to work. That's why I said it's not the most sustainable thing in the world, but that doesn't mean that he still can't be really good. And I think that he's proven that he can be really good.
Yeah, definitely. We had a couple more super chats come in. So a big thank you again, everybody, for these. This one's from Jay White Kim. It says, despite looking a little bit like Timothy Chalamet, Wrobleski is a serious and analytical pitcher. Very impressed with the way he analyzes his performance. And yeah, we were just discussing that. Do you are you aware of Timothy Chalamet?
I know who he is.
Okay. Just making sure. I just need to look, because we have Blake on our staff. Sometimes I think that things are a given, and so we need to double check there to see the Knicks fan Timothy Chalamet. That's what he's known for, right? Nothing else, right?
Courtside at the Knicks and dating one of the Jenner Kardashians. I don't know which one.
There we go. All right, Bruce, your pop culture knowledge there. I like it. Super chat from Shelly says, "This is so un-me and not letting this bother me. Just a game in June. We are a really good team." Yeah, Shelly, I mean, look, I know that that's the sentiment we often express here on this show, the DodgerBlue.com YouTube channel and podcast, whether it's me and Bruce, whether it's Blake and Scott, or Scott and Bruce, or Scott and Anthony, Daniel when we get him mixed in. That is typically the sentiment, right? Is, it is a long season. We can understand the frustration with the loss and the disappointment and not wanting that result, obviously. But ultimately, you look at the standings. Dodgers are still I believe 7.5 maybe 7 games up now. 6. Oh, they lost, I guess, a full game with the Diamondbacks, so it might be 6.5. But a comfortable lead in the NL West. The Padres lost again tonight. The Diamondbacks they're in second place, but a distant second place right now. Not a whole. I mean, honestly, my bigger concern with this team, the bullpen is kind of getting there, but again, like, it was unrealistic to expect them to be perfect. And as you mentioned, as Pinsaty said earlier in the show, the Dodgers only scored 2 runs tonight, so it wasn't as if it was a repeat of, hey, the Dodgers scored 10 runs and the bullpen coughed it up in an 11-10 loss. Like, that would be inexcusable. 2 runs, things happen. The bullpen's not going to be perfect all year long.
Yeah, like you said, I think the bullpen wasn't going to continue performing at the extremely high level they were at. There was going to be some games like this. And this is just one of those ones that you live with. There were a multitude of things that the team could have done better. The offense could have scored more runs, or the bullpen could have shut it down. If either one of those things happened, the Dodgers win tonight. It didn't, and they're still 6.5 games up, returning home with a split. It could be worse.
Definitely. Again, thank you everybody for the super chat. Thank you for joining us on the DodgerBlue.com YouTube channel. If you're listening via podcast after the fact, we appreciate you as well. I see there is some anger in the chat tonight, but it is relatively measured in some regard.
Complimentary. Yeah, I give props.
Yeah. Before we move on, I want to pause for a second and tell you guys about Prize Picks, the sponsor of our show. If you're not familiar with the Prize Picks app, it's really simple to get started. You can use the link in the description of this episode and create a free account that lets you test your knowledge by picking more or less for a bunch of different stats and players, and then you lock in your daily lineup. So our picks for tonight were Freddie Freeman. We're more than 5.5 fantasy score for Freddie Freeman. So with that, we were looking for any type of hit or a walk, run scored, RBI. Unfortunately, Freddie Freeman was 0-4. So that didn't work out tonight. We did do more than 17.5 outs for Wrobleski, so we were expecting 6 innings out of him, and it did end up getting there. Thought maybe the Dodgers would get to Ryan Nelson. As we mentioned, they went a while without even getting a hit off of him, so that one was a little bit of a struggle. So as a reminder, if you want to test your knowledge in whether it's baseball, basketball, NFL, once that gets going, be sure to do so with our promo code HMA for $50 in free lineups when you play $5. Reminder, that's code HMA. And also, Prize Picks is only eligible to those who are at least 18, 19, or 21 years old, depending on the eligible jurisdiction where you reside. And we ask that everybody please make their picks responsibly. All right, so we mentioned the loss. We mentioned kind of the incident with Max Muncy as he was running into Ildemaro Vargas at first base. And I'm pulling this up because we've had some updates come out from the beat writers who were there. Sonia Chen, MLB.com. Muncy said his head was, quote, banged up a little bit, but he did pass concussion protocols, so that's certainly encouraging. He does have, you probably saw the blood. There's the cut on his nose. We reported earlier, Dave Roberts said that Muncy's probably not going to be in the lineup. So at least for now, it appears that Muncy and Frank and the Dodgers have avoided kind of a worst case scenario on the injury front with him for the second time in about 2.5 weeks now.
Yeah, and I think they were telling us, or I don't remember which game that was on the broadcast, where they were saying that Muncy said that when he was moving his forearm, he could still hear it like cracking a little bit. And so it seems like he's living on the edge right now, but sounds like he avoided a catastrophe again here.
Yeah, so certainly encouraging news. I haven't seen anything yet on Ildemaro Vargas. Hopefully, he's okay, and it was just, kind of wind, similar to Muncy, wind knocked out of him type thing. And yeah, Nomo Splitter saying, I thought he hurt his wrist at first. That was my thought as well. I think So Muncy has said that he is still dealing with some pain, some discomfort in that right wrist. So I'm sure that collision didn't make it feel good. I don't know if he necessarily re-injured the wrist type thing, but if it's already sore, if you already have some pain there, that type of collision is not going to feel too good.
I'll say too that because GI just put it in the chat. I posted the same thing right after. I am a big proponent. They should bring the double first base bag to professional baseball. Anybody who has watched college baseball the last couple of years since they introduced it there, it's just like softball has always had 2 first base bags side to side, one of them for the runner, one of them for the fielder. It does not take away from the game at all. And I haven't seen a collision a single time in the last 2 years of doing dirtbag games at Blair Field. They just don't have those sort of unsafe plays anymore. So I think that is a rule change that should come eventually. And there's no drawback to me. It might make some things a little weird with like infield ground balls will be slightly less common singles because of that tiny cutoff, but it's well worth it. And I think that's a change they should make.
Maybe it'll be part of the new CBA. I don't know if they have anything else to tackle in those negotiations. Maybe this will slide in there seamlessly.
That'll be priority 1.
Yeah. What else would they be discussing anyway? There's nothing else. But I mean, I say that tongue in cheek. Truthfully, baseball ratings, attendance, everything is up, and so it's I know you and I don't want to sidebar us here. I know you and I have expressed this in the past that the concern is the sport as a whole, even with some of the concerns, I'll use that word, whether they're manufactured or factual. Even with all of that, things are trending in the right direction for the sport, for baseball as a whole. And so it is, disappointing and frustrating to see kind of the direction it's heading in with the lockout and whatever will come from that.
Yep. Hopefully the owners don't send us into a lockout. And that's the specific phrasing I'm using because it won't be the Players Association who sends us there. If the owners choose that route, then that's on them.
Yeah. All right. Next sort of injury update, if you will, is as I mentioned earlier in the show. If you watch Shohei Ohtani pitching last night, you saw him kind of looking at his right middle finger at different times. Dave Roberts confirmed today that there is what Dave Roberts described as a, quote, little blister that Ohtani is dealing with. He was asked if there was a specific pitch that caused the blister for Ohtani, and Dave Roberts said that he just dealt with it for the last couple starts, and he didn't know, what pitch it was or if that was the case, and that he kind of just gets little information here and there whenever he asks the training staff about it. And Dave Roberts said, every time I've asked, it's been a non-issue, end quote. I know that's what Dave Roberts is saying. Bruce, I don't know for you, but when I did see this, my first thought was this does sort of explain why, not before last night's start, but before Ohtani's 2 starts prior to that one, prior to facing the Diamondbacks, Dave Roberts both times said something to the effect of, and I'm paraphrasing, I'm not fully sure what we're going to get out of Ohtani tonight for XYZ reasons, kind of alluding to, not an injury, but, just physically not feeling right. So that led me to believe, like, hey, has he been dealing with this? And this was the reason why, like, it could kind of pop at any moment. Were you on the same wavelength, or are you thinking something else?
I think it really just puts the pieces together for me of why his command hasn't been like perfect. And there's been times that it's looked like he's frustrated on the mound the last few starts, even as he has been completely successful, like unequivocally, he's been very good, but he's had a few walks and not quite the precision that he had through a lot of the year. I think this definitely explains that. And overall with the blister, I'm not really worried about it just because the talk from Dave Roberts is saying not to worry about it. But stuff like this for Ohtani is always going to be a little bit of a, keep an eye on it for me, because first, obviously, when he's hitting every day, it's a little bit harder for something like that to get fully healed quickly when he doesn't really have a lot of downtime. And then second, don't ever want to see this kind of stuff for him, because if there's ever an issue that takes him off the mound for any extended period of time, it becomes a nightmare for him to get built back up and get back into the rotation, because the Dodgers can't send him on a rehab assignment to the minor leagues. And so this is what they dealt with last year as he was getting back from injury. And that's all just a very difficult process to play out. So the hope is always that he can just keep on his regular schedule and not have any kind of an issue or a wrench thrown in there that could throw things off and make a difficult situation.
Yeah, I agree. And, it is like Ohtani had dealt with blisters in the past. And I believe his splitter usage has gone down recently. And so I feel like maybe that's either a pitch that if it didn't cause the blister, maybe it aggravates it type thing. But the big takeaway from this is that, no reason to be concerned. And again, I know Dave Roberts' track record with injuries, if you will, is not the greatest, but, hopefully things are, for the most part, okay with Ohtani. We had another super chat come in. Life is awesome. Travel well. Good to see you, Matthew and Bruce. Hey, we appreciate this. Appreciate the super chat. I think this is the biggest one we've had so far tonight. So thank you for that. Thank you for tuning in. Big thank you to everybody again who's with us on YouTube. If you're listening via podcast, maybe later tonight or Friday morning type thing, we encourage you to come check out the Dodger Blue 1958 YouTube channel if you get a chance. I know it can be then part of the live discussion in the chat that we've had tonight. And I wanted to throw up No Splitters also saying congrats, Bruce, on graduating. I meant to ask you in our opening as we were cut, but then the intro kind of ended abruptly. Things were thrown off there a little bit. But Bruce, how have things been going for you since graduation?
They've been good. Thank you, No Splitter, for that. It's been nice to take my foot off the gas for a minute here after the semester ended and just enjoy watching some Dodger baseball and have been able to do a little bit more minor league coverage than I was doing through the beginning of the year when I didn't have any time for anything else. So yeah, it's been nice. And it's been a couple of weeks now that have gone by fast.
Yeah. We have an update from Bob Nightingale. He says Ildemaro Vargas has a bruised left rib cage and a bruised left thigh. But other than that, he's okay too. So fortunate, it looks like both players involved in tonight's incident are coming away not unscathed, but certainly avoiding worst case scenario type thing. All right, I want to get into, we have Bruce here, so I want to get into prospects. We haven't done this in a while, and Bruce, I know a couple of days ago, you published an update on Dodgers prospects over on DodgersDigest.com. Seems like James Tibbs III is continuing to open a lot of eyes.
Yeah, he's been ridiculous. And after he started the season, took his success from spring training right into the year, there was a brief moment where he cooled off a little bit, and now he's gotten right back to where he had been at the beginning. Last week, the Dodgers played, or the Comets played at Sugarland, the Astros AAA affiliate, and he hit 6 home runs in 6 games. So that won him the Pacific Coast League Player of the Week. The good thing that's been encouraging for me for Tibbs is a lot of that brief slump that he had that I mentioned was tied to he was striking out a little bit more than you'd want. Now, since the beginning of May, his strikeout rate is down at 22%. So that has gone down to a much more controllable level. And ultimately, he's just hitting. He looks like the polished former college first rounder that just looks like he's too good for the minor league. So he's ready and wait for as soon as if the Dodgers were to need somebody else for injury. He hasn't played left field a single time this year. It's just right field and first base. So I think those are the two places that if another injury happened, then he could be a candidate to come up. He's also been dealing with a forearm thing. So he just has been DHing the last little while. The last 2 days, he's gotten back onto the field just at first base. So we'll see how long it is before he's back in right field. But yeah, blue chipper, he is definitely a top 100 prospect in baseball.
Were all of that being said, considering the improvements Tibbs has made with his strikeout rate and still flashing a power swing and things of that nature? And I apologize if you were asked this on one of our other shows. Were you surprised that maybe the Dodgers didn't make a move to bring him up then when Teoscar Hernandez got hurt? Or do you think, given the relatively short-term nature of that Ryan Ward already being on the 40-man roster was an easier made sense?
Yeah, I wasn't surprised by it at all. I said this on Sunday that the only reason Ryan Ward was kept in the organization was for that exact scenario of an injury to Teoscar Hernandez or Kyle Tucker. And that is the only reason he was here. So they brought him up, and he's been doing okay since he got called up. He made a couple plays in left field, and he's just a consistent guy that the Dodgers have trust will translate to being at least average in the big leagues without any sort of issue there. So not surprising at all, especially considering, like I said, that Tibbs has been dealing with some forearm stuff, and so he hasn't been in the outfield anyway. So I think Ryan Ward was already going to be the first guy, and then once that's factored in, then especially it was going to be Ward.
Do you see Tibbs at some, I know a lot of it is with these guys, it's contingent on an injury and stuff of that nature, but considering that Ward, the Dodgers have already turned to Ward once, and once Teoscar Hernandez is able to come back and they get healthy and things that, if there is another injury at some point, do you think it would probably just be Ward again? Or if Tibbs keeps this up, do you think maybe he'll sort of force the Dodgers' hand at that point?
I think Ward is the guy through the rest of this year, as long as he's healthy, and especially if everybody else gets healthy. Then I think that they would rather have Ward up if there aren't consistent at bats, because that's the other part of it. I think they called up Ward now because Alex Call has been playing good too, and they want to give him some starts. They're going to call up Tibbs if there was a chance for some like real consistent playing time to get his feet wet in the big leagues. And until then, he's in his first year at AAA and he's doing really well down there, but it's not like that this is a Michael Busch situation where he's been down in Oklahoma City for 2.5 years and everybody's just kind of saying there's nothing left for him to do down there. That's actually Ryan Ward that was in those shoes. So Tibbs being in AAA is not a situation that needs to get resolved in an immediate way.
Next prospect that caught my attention from your article was Zach Root, who is, the Dodgers drafted him with the 40th overall pick in 2025. What can you tell us about some of his recent development?
Yeah, Zach Root is a completely different pitcher right now than he was when the Dodgers took him 40th overall, and he was already good value in a vacuum there at 40th, but it was puzzling for a lot of people, myself included, when they took him, just looking at the profile and thinking, okay, there is clearly something else the Dodgers see here, because at Arkansas, he was in the zone a lot, but it was a sinker that probably graded more like a 35 or a 40 on the professional stage once the seams are a little lower. Has a really good curveball, but it was like, okay, I wonder what the Dodgers are going to do here. He didn't appear in a game last year after he got drafted. They just sent him to the lab, and he emerged this spring with a 4-seam fastball instead of the sinker that hits 99. So that's exactly what they were working on, and it's worked very well. After 2 games to start the year, he went straight to high A. Didn't do great for his first 2 games, but since then, I have the stats here. 6 straight games started with 0 earned runs. That's 20 1/3 innings. He's allowed 4 hits with a strikeout rate of 41%. So he's just way too good for high A right now. The sacrifice that's been made with the high octane stuff that he's got now all of a sudden has been a little bit more walks and less command than he had in college. But that is a trade that the Dodgers should be and are completely willing to make for this guy that all of a sudden looks like he is a high ceiling pitching prospect, which is a complete flip on his head from the profile he had in college.
And our own Blake Williams, ever the wordsmith, says, sounds like the Dodgers got to the root of his problems. You mentioned that Zach Root is too good for the high A level right now. Do you see a promotion to double A in maybe in a couple of weeks type thing?
Oh yeah, he's 22, and the clock is very early in his professional career. So normally I wouldn't say this, but 6 starts and 4 hits is just like ridiculous. So I do think that he'll be up in Tulsa pretty soon and spend at least half the season there in double A, and hopefully he makes that jump and continues to look this good.
What about River Ryan? He's someone that I know we're getting a lot of questions about, and we've tried to explain to the Dodgers, Brandon Gomes and Dave Roberts have relayed, like, they want him to build up his innings base. They don't have a clear need in the starting rotation right now. I think especially when you look at Roki Sasaki's recent turnaround and development improvement, however you want to word it. But how are things going for River Ryan down in OKC?
Going very well. He also looks just too good for AAA, and like he's a big league pitcher, almost more on a quote unquote rehab assignment down there, just managing workload and building up innings. Tonight, he got up to 96 pitches and 6 innings pitching there. So I think the build-up part is done, and now it's just about managing innings. He's thrown 28 this year in AAA. I don't imagine that his innings limit would be any higher than like 125, 135, somewhere in there for this year in his return from elbow surgery. So I think that is the big thing to wonder about. Not all innings are created equal. So those innings down there are nowhere near as stressful as they are in the big leagues. So I think they're just kind of managing that situation and making sure they can get the best innings out of Ryan down the stretch and into the playoffs, because he is absolutely the kind of arm that can make an impact in October, whether it's in, I think he could serve sort of a role like Justin Wrobleski had last year, that like swingman kind of thing, not because he's not good enough to be a starter, but just for the innings management and that kind of thing. Because as soon as he's up in the big leagues, he's going to be a super impact arm. 6 pitches, the fastball's up near triple digits, and he's ridiculously good.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. Another prospect making a lot of noise, Josue DePaulo, of course, a name that everybody is certainly familiar with, named Texas League Player of the Week, and then that was followed up with getting named Texas League Player of the Month for May. Bruce, as you did your kind of dive in and analysis on DePaulo, what has stuck out to you?
Yeah, that jump from high A to double A is the biggest jump in competition in the minor leagues. And that's the one that really is the biggest test for these hitting prospects, especially going up a level. It's the one that takes a lot of guys out. Diego Cartaya got taken out by that jump. Josue DePaulo has made that jump and gotten better. He's walking more than he's striking out, which is just unbelievable to say for a kid this young in double A, more than 3 years younger than the average Texas leaguer. And he's absolutely dominating. OPS over 1,000 last month. And he's made improvements not only in his strikeout rate is down. It was already in a good place, and it's down even lower. I think it's only like 13%, something crazy like that, just to show his bat to ball skills. And then he's made a lot of strides this year with pulling the ball in the air and getting more advantage of his raw strength and lifting the ball and getting it out of the yard a little bit more often. So everything is positive for DePaulo. I wrote in that article, there literally is not a negative facet of his game or performance to talk about so far this year. It's been all thumbs up. It's always going to be a who knows kind of thing with his glove in the outfield, but he is still stealing bases. I think that he moves enough that he'll be able to be a left fielder in the big leagues and be good enough with that, because this is a hitter that I have always thought that it's irresponsible to throw around the name Yordan Alvarez and comp to him, because that's just an unfair thing to live up to. But I really don't want to place a cap on the offensive ceiling that DePaulo could have with the bat to ball skills, with the power that he possesses, the way that he puts it all together, the disciplined approach. I mean, this guy goes up to the plate as a 20-year-old, 21-year-old with an approach that is Freddie Freeman level. He's a big leaguer in that aspect already and only going to get better. So DePaulo got moved up to number 4 on Baseball America's top 100 list. I think that he is absolutely deserving of that. And this is a guy that I would not move under any circumstances if I were the Dodgers.
And as you've tracked DePaulo's early career development, growth, however you want to look at it, is there one aspect that has maybe stuck out to you most, whether that you've been most surprised by or most impressed with? I mean, it sounds like maybe his plate discipline, perhaps.
Yeah, it's the maturity in the way that he takes at bats, his bat to ball skills plus the power. It's all a combination of the approach, the bat to ball, and the power that barely exists for someone as young as he is. And it's also been the consistent improvement. He hasn't really ever had a period where he drops off at all. It's just been consistently getting better in the things he's needed to work on, like hitting a little bit more fly balls and pulling him in the air instead of hitting a lot of balls on the ground. Just all those things have continued to get better as he's filled out into his body, and none of that is done. And so I think that's the thing that's most encouraging for DePaulo for me, is the way that he's continued to grow, the maturity that he has at such a young age. I don't see why his progression wouldn't continue. And with the ability that he already has, if he continues to just get better and get better and get better until he's into his physical prime, then that's where I'm saying I don't want to place a cap on his offensive ceiling, because it could be truly ridiculous.
And I imagine this isn't an easy yes. GI is saying DePaulo seems to be the surefire keeper of the outfield bunch. That's sentiment you would agree with.
Yeah, he's the number 1 prospect in the system. And I think you don't want to say this and have it take credit away from the other guys, because the Dodgers have like 6 players that would be the top outfield prospect in most other systems. It's absolutely crazy. But DePaulo is the best of the group. I already thought that heading into this year, and the way that he's made the jump to AA has completely solidified that for me.
Don Kim is also asking, what about Kendall George and his knee, if there's any updates? So yeah, Bruce, if you have more information that we can share, but the last update I know that I had been out, that I saw was out, as the Dodgers were still sending him to either a specialist or a second opinion type thing to see kind of the exact nature and full extent of his knee injury. They I think ruled out ligaments, and it's more patella base.
Yeah,
Is
it
that
was
correct?
patellar tendon sort of thing. I haven't been told or seen anything past that, which I think it's been long enough now that is a little bit worrying, but I don't want to speculate about that kind of stuff. He was having a really good year in AA too. Obviously not DePaula level, but Kendall George has made that jump well too.
Yeah.
So hopefully he'll be okay.
Yeah, definitely. I know you also there were some other Dodgers prospects that you're going to sort of rattle through and give some quick updates on that you think were noteworthy to highlight.
Yeah, I've been yapping for a little bit here, so hopefully everybody is bearing with me. But Chase Harlan deserves to be talked about. He just won California League Player of the Month down in Ontario. This is a 19-year-old that already hits for power like it's absolutely nothing. He flicks balls out of the yard to the right center gap and just has crazy natural power. And heading into the year, last year as an 18-year-old in single A, striking out a lot. There was a ton of whiff in his game to the point that you saw the raw power projection and could be excited about that, but it seemed like that was the only good tool that he really had. Now he has made a ton of strides. The strikeout rate is down below 20%. He's walking 17% of the time and batting like 333. The slug is way up. I mean, it has been a complete package, and the way that he's hitting as a 19-year-old in single A is going to warrant a promotion to high A pretty soon. And Chase Harlan should be getting talked about. And we talk about the outfield prospects a lot, but Harlan is a blue chipper in the system too. I think he's climbing right up with Emil Morales as the top two infielders in the system.
Great. Any other? I mean, you want to just keep rifling through them?
Yeah, there were two more guys I wanted to just mention briefly because they won Player of the Week last year when we were talking about who we were going to talk about on this show. It was the Player of the Week guys I went to first. Alex Makarowicz in High A won Great Lakes or won Midwest League Pitcher of the Week for Great Lakes. That was because he pitched in 2 games and struck out 8 of the 10 batters that he faced. That's the kind of stuff we're talking about. It's a double plus fastball, double plus curveball. Problem with Makarowicz is he really cannot throw strikes. He walks more than a batter an inning, and it's been that way for his whole professional career. But it's a guy just to know for the future if he ever gets the ball anywhere near the strike zones, kind of like Reynaldo Guin has been. That has not gone well this year for him. But for Makarowicz, just if he ever figures out how to throw any strikes, he could be a back-end reliever. Then the other guy is Jaron Elkins. He won Player of the Week in single A, had missed a couple of weeks, returned to Ontario, and had 6 extra base hits in 4 games with 3 home runs. He's repeating single A after he was there for all of last year. Big time whiff, but he's a stupid good athlete, can play center field, a double plus runner with a double plus arm. Kind of fits the mold that the Dodgers have been going for in a lot of these recent drafts with that superb athleticism, but he's got a ton of swing and miss in his game. So if he can start to make some more contact, the strikeout rate's down like 2% this year, but needs to continue improving. Otherwise, he probably won't make it all the way. But it's just about controlling the strikeouts for Elkins, and he could be a pretty good player too and that's a big if, he can just make enough contact.
All right.
Yeah, deep breath. I'm done.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it, Bruce. That was, a nice little update on some of the, like I said, the more known Dodgers prospects, but then also some hidden gems, if you will, that maybe aren't always on the radar for everybody. And again, if you want to read more of Bruce's work, head over to Dodgers Digest. He published an update a couple days ago, so you'll find it there. And also let us know in the comments if you guys want more of these prospect segments. We'll definitely plan to keep working those in. All right, now we're going to get to questions, but before those come in, I'm going to tell you about SeatGeek, another of our sponsors of the show, to hopefully give Bruce some time to catch his breath there, maybe drink some water, towel himself off if he needs to. And as you're getting questions in, please start it with the word question in all caps. It makes it easier for Bruce and I to pick them out. We'll focus on the baseball ones, and if there's any off-topic subjects, then we'll leave those for the end. But we do have a decent amount of time, so hopefully we can get to everybody's question tonight. But in the meantime, while we're waiting for those, let me tell you, remind everyone about SeatGeek. It's the #1 rated ticketing app with more than 70,000 events listed. And it's not just sporting games, but concerts, festivals, and more. Because SeatGeek is a sponsor of our show, we're excited to share a promo code with our audience for 10% off your purchase. SeatGeek wants to get you guys out to Dodger Stadium. So all you have to do is use the code DodgerBlue10 for 10% off tickets to any Dodgers game. Again, that's code in all caps, Dodger Blue, and then the numerals 10 to get 10% off Dodgers tickets. Now, this applies, if it works for bobblehead games and other giveaway nights, it works. But I do want to say, because we got this question the other night, as a reminder, if you're looking to buy a ticket pack, or a special event giveaway, if you will, you have to get those through the Dodgers. It's not SeatGeek. It's not available anywhere else. So, when they did Star Wars night or any of the Heritage nights or date night coming up, if it's not a stadium-wide giveaway, if it's a limited ticket pack item, you need to purchase that through the Dodgers. If it's a bobblehead, things of that nature, go to SeatGeek, use Dodger Blue 10. The link to do it is in the description of this episode. As a reminder, if you should click it, it should apply to your account. But if not, here's the code. And we're also going to put it up in the comments as well. But it is Dodger Blue 10 for 10% off your purchase of Dodgers tickets. So big thank you to SeatGeek for allowing us to share that with our audience. All right. Let's see what questions have come in so far. Excuse me. BL Boyd. Familiarity aside, why would you continue to hit bets high in the order when our offense basically begins every game having only 22, 23 outs to play with because of him? This is facts, guys. BL, look, again, if you're asking about tonight, moving Mookie Betts to leadoff spot, I felt like I don't want Bruce or myself to sound like a broken record, given the options, given, again, whether you agree with it or not, Dave Roberts' ongoing confidence in Mookie Betts. That was a decision that he felt made the most sense. And I think that it is grounded, it is rooted in reason. It was a one-game thing. If you're asking about where Mookie is hitting in the lineup on a regular basis, that's a little bit more fair. But I think also you don't need to agree with it, BL, and everybody else in here with us. But the reality is, as Bruce mentioned, the Dodgers are probably not going to drop Mookie Betts down to 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th type thing. Like they're just not going to do it.
And they shouldn't. The way I kind of touched on this a little bit earlier, but it's a concept. It's a key concept to understand and talk about for how the Dodgers make their lineups. They're not making their lineups based on what has happened. They're not looking at the numbers through the previous few games or the rest of the season behind them and making their lineups based on that. They're making them based on how these guys are projected to perform moving into the future. So I pulled this up just to reference live as an example. Mookie this season has a 76 weighted runs created plus. That's very bad. No 76 weighted runs created plus batter would ever hit cleanup or leadoff or anywhere near the top of an order. That's below replacement level. But Steamer, Fangraph's main projection model, has them at a 126 weighted runs created plus moving through the rest of the season. The Dodgers' internal models would be somewhere around that too, with Mookie being a well above average batter because that's what they expect him to be. And that's where they're going to continue to hit him up near the top of the lineup because that's the guy that when they pencil Mookie Betts into the lineup every night, they're expecting 4 at-bats from their projection model, not from the guy who's been way underperforming what he should be doing through the season to this point. Simply put, when you look at the Dodger lineup, the other guys that are hitting behind Mookie Betts, the Dodgers have a great lineup, but guys, I'm looking at tonight's lineup, like Ryan Ward was in there, Dalton Rushing, Alex Freeland were the bottom 3. None of those guys are expected to be better than Mookie Betts moving through the rest of the season. And that's just how the Dodgers are going to make their lineups. That's how they've done it. That's how they're going to continue doing it.
Let's see, what else do we have? Nomo Splitter wants to know, how would you rank the contracts by how bad they are? Devers, Machado, Tatis, and Chapman.
I was laughing when I saw this one come in. You want to go first? Because I've got an answer. I can go if you want me to.
Go ahead. You go first.
Okay, so I think that I'm going to say Devers is the worst. He's really struggling right now. I think there was a reason that Boston wanted to get out from that deal. But it's a toss-up between Devers and Machado. Those are for sure 1 and 2. I think you could go either way, but Devers, I have a little less faith to perform immediately, and at least Machado is still playing a regular defensive position. Tatis also doesn't look great, but he's young enough that it's like not that big a deal. And then Chapman, assuming this is Matt Chapman we're talking about, doesn't have a big enough contract for me to be all that worried about it.
My gut reaction was Machado is first, but I think you talked me into Devers taking over that spot. I can see that, but honestly, I wouldn't argue. Like those guys are one
Those are both
MVP.
horrible contracts. I think I can reiterate that I do not think Manny Machado's contract is good in any way, shape, or form. That is an awful contract.
Yeah, but at least Machado has also given the Padres something during his lucrative deals, right? So there is that. And then, I agree with you. Tatis is then third, and then Chapman is easy to put at the bottom. All right, let's see. Good question, Almost Splitter. I think you asked it the other night, and the guys didn't get to it, so thank you for bringing it up again tonight. Let's see, what else do we have here? GI wants to know, what's the word on Emil Morales? Can he be the shortstop of the future?
Yeah, Emil got moved up to high A, so he's played his first, I think 11 or 12 games there in this last couple of weeks. He's been an RBI machine this year, 51 runs driven in 47 games, and has been showing off the power that he's got, 9 home runs. It's not like he's been lighting the world on fire this year. He hasn't been walking very much, which has been a departure from his norm, but he's doing good. He's still very young, and he's got he's one of the guys in the system that the Dodgers have a few now, but he's just been very impressive for me ever since he won the Dominican Summer League MVP in his first professional experience. It's been since he was like 17 that Emil lifts the ball out of the ballpark to all fields like it's absolutely nothing. He has oppo pop that most guys his age don't normally have. And so there's a ton of power to project with him once he continues to fill into his frame, and then just cross your fingers that he sticks at shortstop. I think that's a coin flip between whether he plays shortstop or has to move to third, but he'll be a left side infielder.
There we go. Let's see, what else do we have here? Oh, BL Boyd, not a question, but BL Boyd was just adding, not blaming you two good guys, blaming the organization. Their nerd stats cannot explain away 2 putrid seasons in a row and cannot begin to convince any fan of future success. So this is, again, in reference to Mookie Betts. And look, I get it. Like every time we discuss Mookie, like I do think there needs to be nuance with him. And I've said this before. I believe, and I think it's reasonable to doubt Mookie Betts ever sort of getting back to that MVP. And you can Bruce, you can disagree, people can disagree, but I don't see Mookie Betts getting back to that MVP level that he was in 2018, 2009, even. What year did he fracture his hand with the Dodgers?
Was that 22, I think?
22, yeah, 22 or 23, something.
Yeah.
I think Mookie, to me, has basically been playing catch-up since the hand fracture on Father's Day. He also fractured his toe. He also, dealt with that weird virus last season. He then dealt with an oblique strain. So I think the floor for Mookie Betts can still be higher than what we have seen. I'm not expecting him to be kind of somebody that carries the lineup. And Normal Splitter is saying Mookie isn't the player he was. It's better to discuss what's a reasonable regression than just be mad at him. Exactly. And that's what I think I'm trying to do. And for me, again, like I don't expect, Mookie, if he has a good game here or there, that, okay, now he's going to be back to the superstar level. Like, I know him as I assume him as a competitor, as a former All-Star, 4-time World Series champion. Like, he wants to believe, and you don't get to the major league level. You don't achieve the level of success that Mookie Betts has without that self-belief. So I wouldn't expect him to come out and say, like, no, I'm not going to be, that good anymore type thing. But as Nomo Splitter says, I think, regression has certainly set in. And so it's a matter of kind of determining what the basis is for Mookie.
Yeah, I agree with you that he's not going to be the 2018 Mookie Betts ever again, but I don't think that should be the expectation that we're weighing him against, where if he's underneath that, then it's a disappointment or anything like that. I think Mookie's trying to get back to that 20% better than league average sort of level as a hitter and pair that with his defense at shortstop, and that would be perfectly satisfactory. He's had a tough string of different things happening, injuries that have prevented him from getting back to that. And I think that it's been real unlucky for him, where every time it's looked like he's starting to get going, then something else hits. So I think that he I don't, like you said, I don't blame people for doubting a little bit right now because it's been long enough, and I get it for sure. But I still want to believe that Mookie Betts can be a productive player and a productive hitter specifically on this Dodger roster.
Yeah, I agree. All right, let's see what else we have here. Jake the Panda wants to know, what do you expect from Sasaki tomorrow? Another step forward or just staying the course?
I think that he's already been taking that step forward, so it's not like that there's going to be necessarily linear improvement because he's made that improvement. If he does what he has done these last couple starts, that's great, and that's already the level that the Dodgers want him at. So that's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah, I agree.
Doesn't have to progress to no hitters.
Yeah, some fans might want that though. Bruce, is that too much? Is a no hitter too much to ask for these days?
I'm hoping for it too.
Thomas says, Bruce, I heard Blake Harris talk about DePaula being a first baseman. Is that related to poor glove or an outfield position freed up for one of the other prospects, like trying to get as much outfield prospects on the field as possible?
Yeah, that's been something that's been thrown around for Josue for a few years now. I think it started with Keith Law, wrote that in a write-up at some point. Josue has never played first base, and the Dodgers have not ever given him innings there. So I don't think that's something that's going to be immediately happening. It's just something that naturally, when for his entire prospect career, it's been a very dubious defensive projection in the outfield. And so it's the next step in that people say, okay, maybe if he can't play the outfield, then first base instead of DH because the Dodgers have Shohei Ohtani. But I think that DePaula is going to be okay in left field or right field long term, and the first base thing could come about once he's closer to the big leagues, if that's the only path they see for him to get playing time in the majors. If, like, say, Freddie Freeman is leaving after next year or whatever, and that's how they see a way to get him to the bigs, then maybe. But I don't think that that's something that's immediately on the horizon either.
Okay, thank you. Let's see. We have a couple more baseball and then some a few more baseball and then some semi off topic. GI says, with all the talk about Skubal, should the front office be a bit leery about trading for a pitcher who may not be motivated to go all in? For example, Max Scherzer in 2021 in his walk year coming off an injury. I don't know enough about Skubal's makeup. I don't think I haven't heard this type of reputation. I know with Scherzer, like, I don't know how much of that reputation was kind of out there until it sort of was happening to the Dodgers type thing. This was out there with Garrett Clevenger, 3 years ago, where, he I think himself basically confirmed that, yeah, like, I don't really want to pitch past an innings limit type thing that he had sort of self-imposed because he was looking to hit free agency. Would you have any concern here with Skubal with this factor?
No, it's something that is definitely worth bringing up, and it's something the Dodgers would have a conversation in their front office before making the trade, but I don't think that it's anything that would go anywhere. Tarek Skubal is a gamer. That is the only thing I've ever heard or seen or saw said about him. He pitched in the World Baseball Classic in his walk year. That was not something that he had to do. And the way that he talks about
sort of pitched.
He was there. He could have not been there at all. But I think that for a guy that every indication has been that he just wants to win, I don't think there would be an issue. So I don't think that's something that the Dodgers would be worried about. You can say they'd be worried about trading for a guy right before he enters free agency and giving up a ton of prospect capital and say that that's something to worry about. I think that would be a fair conversation, but I don't think this would be the reason they would steer away.
Yeah, my two, I think, main thoughts on this is, one, Skubal having the nanoneedle procedure to get back on the field sooner, I think is telling. Like, he's trying to work his way back, and sure, you could argue that of course he wants to get back and keep pitching because it'll be good for his free agency or potentially trade. I'm of the mind, whether Tarek Skubal returns from his elbow surgery in 6 weeks or 3 months, he is probably going to get paid as a free agent. So there's little impact there. So to me, it does show like, yeah, he wants to get back out on the field. Now, my guess, he publicly has said, he's not worrying or thinking about trade rumors and things like that. And he said, I think recently commented on, look, if we start winning games, then maybe the discussion sort of changes and stuff of that nature. So trying to come back to what is a losing Tigers team right now. So I think that speaks to his character and compete, as Dave Roberts would say. The other thing too is if the Dodgers needed to sort of dance around, maybe, hey, he doesn't want to pitch all that often. They're running a 6-man rotation as it is. They like that inherently reduces the number of starts that Skubal would make for them, and they would take care of them in the playoffs, so on and so forth. But I get the sentiment. Good question, but no, I don't think there's reason to be concerned at all. All right, let's see what else. Well, sticking with Skubal, Roger says, which prospects do you think would be offered in a Skubal trade? I know Lance Brodowski, who we've had on here, and we're going to try and get him back on again. It was River Ryan and one other player, I thought, for Skubal, which I thought was frankly kind of light.
And Ryan that Lance drew up.
I felt like that was kind of light, honestly. I don't think that gets it done.
I think that it was that's a lot to part with to me. And that's not just me being a prospect hugger, because I genuinely think that the stars are aligned here, where it just makes so much sense for the Dodgers and the Tigers to be a trade partner with how stacked the Dodgers are with outfielders and just the farm as a whole. It's perfect for the Dodgers to be willing to part with some of that really good talent to go get a Skubal. I think that Sirota and Ryan could be fair more than it's not enough, but I mean, it's a really hard thing to evaluate because you don't know how much other teams are going to be willing to go and part with. The point that Lance made that I really agreed with was this is the Dodgers bidding to win. And what Lance was saying was the Tigers would be silly from their front office to not approach this if they do decide to trade Skubal, which seems like would make sense. They'd be dumb to not bring any offer they get from any other team to the Dodgers and give them a chance to beat it, because if the Dodgers want to win a bidding war of prospects for Tarik Skubal, they can.
Amanda is asking if is that why Ryan hasn't come up. No, River Ryan hasn't been up more from the standpoint of the Dodgers want him to just pitch, frankly, and he is on an innings limit, and so they don't need him right now to be chewing up all his innings at the major league level. He is still pitching, obviously, with Oklahoma City, as Bruce mentioned. He pitched tonight. You said 6 innings, I believe it was.
Yeah, I think 96 pitches. So he's built up all the way. But like I said, not all those innings are created equal. AAA 6 innings is not the same workload wise as being up in the bigs.
Yeah. Back to Skubal. Nomo Splitter says, Bruce, you're Andrew Friedman, and Nomo Splitter's calling from Detroit, asking what prospects you can offer for Skubal. Who do you got?
So I was thinking about this the other day, and I think for me, Sirota and Ryan would be tough. The guy that I would say is off the table is DePaula. And then from there, from my perspective, obviously this could change if bidding were to happen and they had to raise their offer. But what I'd be hoping from a Skubal trade standpoint is you could say one of Sirota, one of Ryan, and then another blue chip guy from whichever side. I would hope my ideal package, if I were to create it, would be like Ryan, Zahir Hope, and another prospect to keep it going there that isn't from that very top echelon. It doesn't have to be Hope, but it could be like Quintero or somebody, as long as it's not, because I think right now, to me, DePaula and Sirota are the top 2. So I would hope to, if it's going to be Sirota in there and Ryan, or you could say Sirota and then Christian Zazueta or something else on the pitching side, a different top 100 caliber arm. Zach Root could be close to that conversation right now with the way that he's pitching, and then add a third guy from there. But I think it's very realistic to say it could wind up being Sirota and Ryan and maybe even a third guy, like you said, or another team wins the bidding war, and that would be a thing I'd have to think about.
Fair to say that it would probably be smart of the Dodgers to sort of leverage some of their outfield depth of prospects that they have, right? Because and that is one thing where I think Andrew Friedman, the reputation Andrew Friedman has, he's a prospect hugger. I think in reality, what he has shown time and time again is he is willing to trade prospects, and especially when it's from an area of depth. When the Dodgers had a bunch of starting pitching prospects, that's where they're trimming from, because you're not going to have room for all those guys. First of all, not unfortunately for these players, not everybody pans out at the major league level. It's just the reality. So that's one. Two, you're not going to have room for all of them either. And I think that's where things are sort of going to eventually come to a head with these outfielders. And so potentially, move one or two of them in a trade.
Right. So I think that is exactly why they line up so well. The Tigers sounds like they want close to big league ready talent. The Dodgers have a bunch of that with their outfielders, with River Ryan. It just seems like a match that is kind of made in heaven. And I agree with you that if there was ever a time for the Dodgers to go and part with talent, they normally would be a little bit apprehensive to trade guys that are this good. It would be now. And if a trade like this happened, it would most definitely include at least one of these top outfielders going back, if not multiple, because that is the scenario that makes sense for both sides.
So given the Tarek Skubal trade talk, Thomas wants to know, why not just wait for free agency to sign him and not give up any prospects?
Yeah, there's two aspects of this. Sorry to cut you off.
Go for it.
There's two aspects of this. First, Tarek Skubal increases the World Series odds this year by quite a bit because he's so good. He would be the best pitcher on the staff, and the Dodgers already have one of the best rotations in MLB history. Skubal would be the ace, and that is crazy if they could add that. And then second of all, I think there's a little bit of it that is preventing Tarek from going to the Braves or one of their other National League rivals. That you don't make this trade specifically for that reason, because that would be way too much value to part with that being the only reason why. But it's a little cherry on top if the Dodgers were to have win that another one of these World Series contenders that they could face off with, especially if it's a National League team, was like on the verge of getting him or really going hard, then it might be a little bit easier to stomach losing the prospects if not only are you getting Tarek Skubal for your team, but you're also making sure that you're not going to have to go up against him in a Game 7 in the playoffs.
And I'll add a third element to this. The financial outlook with the new CBA is going to change. And I'm not saying that means salary cap, salary floor, and all that stuff, but I think it's fair to say that the luxury tax, however you want to look at the business side of it, is probably going to undergo some change than what we've been accustomed to. And so the Dodgers, whether it's because if they go to, something like the NBA where, that's a cap thing. And if you get past certain aprons, I know MLB does it right now where they have the different, CBT thresholds. And as you keep exceeding them and repeat offender penalty, stuff like that. But maybe the Dodgers won't be able to spend the money on Skubal just because of, different restrictions that are potentially put into place. And again, I'm not saying literally in the form of a cap, but I'm anticipating that it is going to look different, just at minimum, one way or another.
I'm just going to throw something out for fun that I don't think is realistic at all, because Tarek Skubal, it sounds like he's going to free agency. But what if, in some world, the Dodgers were to be afraid of a salary cap or some kind of a lockdown on contracts and say, this could be our last chance to get a guy this good, trade for Tarek Skubal, and then just go to him and say, I know your answer is no to an extension, but what if we just give you $450 million and give you a number that there is a low likelihood you'd get to in a bidding war in free agency just to get one last mega contract on the books before the CBA hits? I don't know. Just something to think about.
Yeah, not the worst idea. It would certainly make sense for the Dodgers. But yeah, those, I agree. Like if reasonable, even if the extension isn't on the table, reasonable cost type thing, you can pursue a Tarek Skubal trade. I think it is certainly worth exploring at bare.
And like I said, to be clear, that is not a realistic thing. I'm throwing it out like I'm playing MLB The Show. That's not happening at all, but it's just a fun thought experiment.
Scott Boras will hang up the phone before you even get 3 words out of you.
Please do not go to the trade deadline hoping for a Tarek Skubal extension and trade to happen, because it won't.
Richard is asking, what's the point of Treinen if you're not going to use him in a close game with an overworked bullpen? Treinen's spot in the pen should go to a pitcher that can actually pitch in a game. He did pitch, I believe, what was it, last night or 2 nights ago? I believe it was.
He's been in a couple leverage spots lately. I think that his track record, his makeup, the Dodgers have shown even last year when he was atrocious that they were still going to give him the ball in close games and not be like totally afraid of that. I definitely don't think he's like near the top of the pecking order. He's been superseded by Kyle Hurt and Will Klein and those guys. But I still think that just because he's Blake Treinen and he's pitched in so many high leverage spots before and clearly won't shy away from those moments, even if his stuff isn't very close to what it used to be anymore, they still aren't going to be terrified of that.
Yeah, pitched on Tuesday, like you said. I think it's a testament to some of the other guys that have maybe ascended past him in the proverbial bullpen trust tree.
The Dodgers also, it's been like years now that they don't have the specifically tiered bullpen like that. It seems like everybody in the bullpen winds up pitching in close games like somehow no matter what, because that's just how the usage goes. So I don't think that they have anybody down there that even Jonathan Hernandez has been really good in his low leverage spot. So I wouldn't be surprised if he gets thrown a close game at some point too.
Yeah, Amanda's saying she doesn't like Treinen's mustache, that it creeps her out. Yeah, it is an interesting look. He looks more like a cop than a relief pitcher now with his mustache. All right. Morning, everybody. Now we have a few more here that we're going to end the show with. They are non-baseball related. Nomo Splitter says, do you subscribe? Well, here, we'll do that one last, Nomo, since it's food. Don Kim wants to know, since it was Robo Day, did you like any of the original RoboCop trilogy or even the 2014 remake? Bruce, are you too young to get this reference, or are you aware of the RoboCop movies?
I know what I'm aware of them existing, but I've never watched any of them.
So I didn't know. I will say I didn't know that it was a trilogy. I looked this up when the question came in. I have seen the original. I did like the original movie. I never knew that they did a second one. Never knew that they did a third one. Never knew that they then did one in 2014. So I have some catching up to do, apparently. The original, again, and I watched the original when I was younger, so I don't know how it would hold up if I went back and watched it now, but it was certainly entertaining. And I do enjoy the RoboCop puns that Wrobleski seems to draw. Bruce, you don't need to answer this one. I'm going to answer it for you. Blake was asking when you're going to go to Disneyland with him for Galaxy's Edge. Blake, when you get Bruce in with your lifetime Disney pass, that's when he'll go with you. You shouldn't expect him to spend not all of us spend the big Disney bucks like Blake does.
It's been a long time since I went to Disneyland, but I'm absolutely up for it. Like, I don't know if I've seen any of the Star Wars stuff there. I think they might have like just been starting it last time I went to Disneyland, but I think last time I was there was like Cars Land was new. If that gives a timeline for you as a Disneyland historian that I'm not. But there's a lot of stuff there that would probably be cool to see. I don't think that I'm as knowledgeable as Blake with Star Wars, but I'm definitely a Star Wars fan, so it would be cool to see that stuff.
Bruce, nobody's as knowledgeable or as obsessed with Star Wars. Although
yeah, that's a given.
Blake claims to be a big Star Wars fan, but again, we have to keep reminding people in the interest of transparency and balance on these shows that he shows up to these events without his lightsaber. So Blake, we still want to know how you can claim to be a big fan but not take your lightsaber to the meetup.
I will be going to see the Mandalorian and Grogu tomorrow. Finally, I've been like trying to find the time to go see it, and now I finally will be.
All right, there you go. Blake, no spoilers. I think Blake has seen it about 5 times, and he has, I think, one more on the docket coming up at some point.
I think 5 is a low estimation.
Maybe, perhaps. We'll go out with this one unless we get some final questions that trickle in. Nomo Splitter wants to know, do you subscribe to the opinion that In-N-Out purposely makes the regular fries very average so you'll spend more money to make it animal style? So I didn't know this was a thing that was, I guess, apparently going around. Maybe it's on TikTok or something. I'm not over there. Bruce, if this theory, this narrative is floating out there, do you see any merit in it?
If it is true, then there's a hack already. I learned about this on the show probably nearly a year ago now, that when you go to In-N-Out, you can basically get animal fries without paying for animal fries. And the way to do that is you get your fries if you want to get them well done, like some people do. You can do that, whatever. But then all you have to do is add grilled onions and add spread, and they don't charge you for that. And so you don't get the cheese on it. But like, do you really need to pay all that extra money just for cheese on your fries? I think you'll be fine. So grilled onions and spread, and they load it all on there. Sometimes I've even gotten it in the animal fries box. They just do that and don't charge me any extra. So that's the only way I've done In-N-Out for ever since I learned about that.
I'm going to push back on that. I think you do need cheese. I'm probably our biggest cheese fan on our staff, so that's not going to surprise anybody. I'm also going to say, and Don Kim is saying the same thing. Don Kim says I think In-N-Out fries are excellent. They taste like potatoes. I think In-N-Out fries are fine, are good as well. Like I don't see any issue with them.
They get a lot of heat.
They do, and I've never really understood it. I think sometimes I'm in the mood for like well done fries, and those are good, but their regular fries are also fine. And you've helped Nomo Splitter. He's going to use that hack now as well.
It's good. Yeah, it's the way to go for sure. The thing with In-N-Out is I think a lot of people don't like the fries because they drive through and then they drive home. If you're going to eat In-N-Out, you got to eat it right away, especially the fries. That they're going to be horrible in 15 minutes. So eat them as soon as you get them and they'll be good.
That's fair. I do live close enough to one where I can get home and they're still salvageable. But also if you do a light well, if you do a well done, then I think they hold up better than if you just get regular. Yeah, GI is saying the expiration date on In-N-Out fries is about 5 minutes.
But within those 5 minutes, they're very good.
They are good. Mike Taylor's asking, how do you like Shake Shack's cheese fries?
Never had them. I've only had Shake Shack like twice.
Okay. I've had them. They are good. I don't like Shake Shack's burgers. I used to when they first came out. Then I feel like they're not as good anymore. But their cheese fries are pretty good. So that is good. All right. I think that's going to do it for tonight. A big thank you to everybody who joined us over on the Dodger Blue 1958 YouTube channel. I know the outcome of the game wasn't what we were expecting as it got into the 6th and 7th inning, and the Dodgers, albeit it was a slim lead, but they had a lead. But the bullpen, hey, as we explained throughout the night, they're not going to be perfect, and the offense deserves some blame, if you will, for only scoring 2 runs tonight. Ultimately, the Dodgers got a 4-game series split with the Diamondbacks out in Arizona, coming back home this weekend now to play the Angels for 3 games in a row, and then it's back out on the road. I think there's a day off Monday, and then they start with the Pirates, if I remember correctly, and the White Sox might be after that.
You think so? Yeah.
So it'll be another road trip for the Dodgers. Quick programming note, Vince's Unplugged show tomorrow morning is not going to be up. There was kind of some scheduling conflict that came up, so we told Vince, not to worry about it. So don't look for that. We appreciate you guys. I know I've popped in to that chat here and there and watched, and we have seen a lot of the familiar names supporting Vince and continuing to support our show, our second show, and as we expand into more content. So we appreciate you guys doing that. So unless there's anything kind of breaking, we will see you guys back for a live show on Sunday. I believe Fabian will definitely be on back with that one. Maybe we could get him to talk the Dalton Rushing ABS challenge that I alluded to. In the meantime, we will be at Dodger Stadium covering the games this weekend. So be sure, like I said, to say subscribe to the Dodger Blue 1958 YouTube channel. And if you're listening to our podcast, we appreciate you as well. Maybe come check us out on YouTube if you get a chance. Bruce, a big thank you. You held down that prospect segment. Everybody, it was a big hit. So hopefully you'll still have a voice tomorrow.
Hey, that's my favorite, to get on here and yap about prospects. I think everybody who knows me knows how much I enjoyed that. So I'm just glad to be able to get on a microphone and do it.
There we go. And again, big thank you to everybody. We'll see you guys next time, and you can keep checking us out. DodgerBlue.com will have daily content up. For Bruce, I'm Matthew, and we will talk to you guys later.